Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia here with you today, Cosmic Astrologer. So this is going to be part 2 of looking at composite charts. My last video cut out just as I was discussing something quite important. So I will finish or complete what I was saying, and I'll explain what that was in a moment. But I guess just to recap from the last video, in case you missed it, what I was talking about was when you're looking at a composite chart, which is a relationship chart, and for the purposes of this video and what I'm discussing romantic love partnerships, okay, because there are, you know, so many different types of relationships. As we know, there's business relationships, families, etc. Okay, but the purpose of this video in terms of using a composite chart is specifically for personal, intimate love relationships. All right, so we talked about the importance of the sun in terms of its location in the composite chart, because it shows the primary purpose and energy of the two people coming together, and therefore what is the purpose of that relationship. That's seen through the sun. So the sun's placement is highly significant in terms of its house location, and of course its aspects, to show you how that relationship is unfolding. What purpose does it have? Why have the two people come together? And as I said, there are really great houses for the composite sun, and then there are houses that are not so great and not ideal for a personal, intimate relationship. And I also mentioned that in my own personal experience in life, because of all the experiences I've had through my own personal relationships, and as well as working with composite charts and looking at composite charts of the people I've dated or had relationships with, etc. I know what works and what doesn't. Well, certainly for me. But in terms of the houses that are difficult, they're difficult for everybody, not just for me. They have an inherent difficult nature when it comes to an intimate personal relationship. Okay, so it is what it is. Okay, the moon, we said, is the emotional soul connection and the emotional support of the relationship. That is, are the two people feeling supported emotionally, and are they feeling connected emotionally? You know, what's happening with that emotional connection and bond? How is that playing out in terms of what house it's in, etc.? So the moon, you know, will act in a very particular way through each house as well. And there are difficult placements for the moon, just as there is for the sun. But today I'm going to focus on the sun, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each house for you in terms of what does it mean to have the composite sun through the first house, second house, etc. I'll do that in a moment. And before I do, I just want to remind you, so looking at the sun, looking at the moon, the favorable houses, which I've actually told you what they are, but I'll go through that in more detail when I go through all the houses in a moment. You really need to be looking at the nodes and any planets on the south node particularly, and north node. Well, when one planet is on the south node, it's going to be opposite the other node anyway, so you're really reading it. A planet on a node will be read with regards to past, future stuff as well. The south node is the past, the north node is the future. So the south node is what we have brought in with us and what we actually need to learn to let go of, which is often very painful and very difficult and very challenging and not easy to do when you don't have much consciousness or awareness. So obviously the more conscious we are, the more we are working through our chart, ourself, our soul, on a conscious level, and understanding what it is that we need to heal, work through, release, and grow into. Okay, so that's the nodes, and also when you've got a planet on the south node in a composite chart, to me, the way I read it is that it's a very strong indication of what sort of life the couple had in a previous life together, and that they did actually have a previous life together. Okay, so then you also need to look at Saturn's location. That's really primary and important because that's going to show a lot of karmic sort of themes and elements, and perhaps where some really tough lessons need to be learned with the couple and their relationship together, and what they're here to evolve into through their relationship and connection. And Mars Venus, of course, because they're the love, passion components of the expression of the relationship and the two people. So what's Mars and Venus doing? What aspects do they have? Where are they located? And of course, last but certainly not least, in fact probably one of the most powerful, looking at Pluto and its location. So they're the main things that I actually look at when I look at a composite chart, in amongst other things as well. As I said, there's lots to look at and to work with. Okay, but I'm just giving some pointers here to give you something, a foundation actually to build on. Okay, this is your primary foundation when you're working with a composite chart. Okay, moving on. Just another point on the sun. If the sun is located in a difficult house and has difficult aspects, the life of that relationship is likely not to be very long. And if it is, it's going to be a very difficult relationship where both people feel somewhat repressed and uncomfortable in the relationship and unable to be themselves and to express themselves, because the sun is our expression, you know, of our light, our spirit, our heart, our personality. So if you have a couple where both people are not able to express themselves, well, I can't see that being a very happy relationship, for lack of a better word. All right, so let's start. Composite sun in the first house. As I said earlier in my previous video, the composite sun in the first house is a fantastic placement, okay, to have the composite sun. Just remember, I'm talking about personal, intimate relationships, okay, because you can look at a composite chart for a business relationship, for family relationships, for friendships, a number of, any relationship you have, you can think of, you can actually do a composite chart for. Not only, by the way, not only for two people, you can actually do a composite chart for a group of people as well. So, you know, it extends to that as well. But today we are focusing on the love, connections and relationships. So in the first house, it's an awesome placement for the composite sun. It literally means that the two people have come together to basically enable each other to be free, independent, and express themselves through their unity. Their unity does something that enables them to feel that energy even more. Remember, the first house is the Aries house, so it's about that expression and that freedom and that independence and that assertiveness. So when the couple are together, they may even in fact be able to feel that even more than they are as individuals. Okay, so something about the first house bringing the two people together really develops a very strong connection on that level, and it's just an awesome placement. And it also means that the way the couple is seen with the sun in the first house, the couple shine. You know, the sun shines, it's a light, right? It's the ruler of Leo. So the couple shine in a way, and to other people, and they have this aura and this energy about them, and people are drawn to them because the sun, you know, it's light, so it draws, right? So that's the first house. Now, I am going to keep it very simple, otherwise this video is going to be too long and it's going to cut in while I'm halfway through, and that's going to be very annoying because that means I'll have to do another one. And I don't want to do that right now, so let me get through this fairly quickly. I'm just giving you some pointers, some highlights. I'll tell you which book to get if you don't already have it, which is probably one of the best books written on composite charts. I'll go into that in a moment. Okay, the second house, not a particularly favorable house, but not a difficult house either, okay? It is more of a favorable house for business partnerships, you know, professional working relationships. If you were in a professional working relationship with somebody and you had the composite sun in the second house, fantastic. But as I said, this talk today is about personal, intimate love relationships. So with the sun in the second house, the emphasis would be on material possessions and the working together towards attaining, creating this world, creating the material world, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that, because couples do that together anyway. But what's happening with the sun in the second house is it means that the material world takes over so much. The focus and the drive of creating that takes over at the expense of the emotional and psychological connection that the two people could have. Okay, so that's what loses out when you've got composite sun in the second house. And obviously values comes into this as well, and it doesn't mean that if you've got the composite sun in the second house that the two of you have identical values. It could mean that you have very different values as well, okay? But values is another element that that comes through in terms of the union of these people coming together. Not the greatest place, but not the worst place. Third house, I briefly touched on this when I used my own example in my own personal life, and I said that I've had a couple of relationships with the composite sun in the third house, and it felt more like a sibling relationship. Weird, I know, but that's what it felt like, and that's what the sun in the third house will do. It's the Mercury Gemini house of siblings, and on other levels it's the house of the mind as well. So, you know, the couple could have a great intellectual connection and relationship where they share lots of ideas together, but the love, sexual, sensual, passionate stuff just doesn't have a space. it just doesn't work with sun in the third house. It's just how it is. Okay, sun in the fourth. This is a beautiful, powerful placement for the composite sun. It really brings two people together very strongly on a very deep emotional level. So there's this, just checking my notes. There's shared ideas about home life and what that looks like and what that feels like, and there's a sense that two people can come together and live together and share the same space together. There's something that brings them together in that space where they feel very, very connected and very drawn to being together on all those intimate levels, and actually sharing their physical space and creating their little nest in their home together. It's a beautiful place for the composite sun. And it's also an indication that the two people want to settle down together, and there's longevity in this relationship. It's a very strong placement, very good, and very good for marriage as well. Doesn't mean that the two people will necessarily have the contractual sort of marriage, but if they did, it's a good placement for it. And even if they didn't, they'd have a very long-lasting relationship, very strong emotional bonds and connections, and able to go into each other quite deeply on that emotional psychic level as well. Fifth house, that's another beautiful placement for the composite sun. In fact, the fifth house is great for any kind of relationship, really, because the fifth house is the house of fun, joy, self-expression, play, creativity, and so forth. So from a romantic level, it is the house of love affairs. That's the fifth house, house of love affairs. So when you've got the sun in the fifth house, it means that the two of you can have a lot of fun together. It's a fun relationship. It's a relationship with a lot of play and a lot of self-expression and creativity. So really creating things together on that really creative level, in terms of, well, the creative level has a wide spectrum, so that can be so many different things, right? But essentially, in a nutshell, the essence of the fifth house is that when the sun is there, that the couple have so much fun together. There's so much joy in that relationship. It's an awesome placement, really. Don't really hear many couples saying that, we have so much fun together. It's not that common. Well, in my experience anyway. So great house for the composite sun. Okay, sixth house. Now this is where we're moving into really awkward territory. Okay, the sixth house is the Virgo house, and it has an inherent quality about it which is inequality. Okay, so it's probably one of the worst places for a composite sun. You don't want to have a relationship where your composite sun is in the 6th. Trust me, I've checked it out, I've experienced things, and I've done many readings for people who have had composite sun in the 6th house, and you know, once they had the reading and they understood what was going on, you know, it helped give meaning to this very difficult relationship they were having. Okay, so how it plays out is like this. What happens is because of the inherent inequality of the 6th house, it's the house of service. So what happens is there's an imbalance with the give and take that exists in a healthy, equal partnership. So it ends up that one person takes and one person gives. Okay, so yeah, one person's taking, one person's giving. It's not. There's a sense of inequality, and the one who's giving could feel like a servant almost. They're just like a servant to this other person in the relationship. It's a terrible place for the composite sun, for an intimate, passionate love relationship. Okay, if you have this, I feel, yeah, don't feel very happy for you, but it's important to know, you know, because we have choices, we can make changes, nothing is permanent. Okay, so 7th house, excellent placement, house of Libra. Okay, house of relationships, so it's an excellent placement for all sorts of relationships, but certainly for marriage and love, passionate relationships. It's really got an inherent quality of balance, equilibrium, and it's a house of sharing. So the two people feel very connected, very interested in sharing everything together, and giving that balance and that equality, and that give and take process is very natural and just flows and is at ease when the composite sun is in the 7th house. So it's an awesome placement. If it was working on a negative level, and that would be indicated through other factors in the chart, then what might show up is that the couple can become a little bit competitive, and don't think that really works very well in a love relationship, to be competing against one another, okay, because that's not really supportive, is it? Okay, sun in the 8th house, again, this is a very powerful house. It's the Scorpio house, so this is a real fated sort of feeling of how the couple feel. They feel that their relationship is very fated and karmic, and they've come together for very, very specific, intense, transforming purposes and circumstances and life changes. They have a very, very deep connection, and they go into these deeper spaces together and explore and transform and transcend from an emotional and a psychological and a sexual level. So this is the house where the sexual component of this couple's life would be, they would perhaps be interested in tantra and things like that. So the sexual chemistry connection component is used as a vehicle for the couple to transcend individually and together in the relationship. It's a very powerful house. Yeah, awesome house. Okay, 9th house. Now this is where my last video finished off. I had just started talking about the 9th house, and the 9th house is not a difficult house, much like the 3rd house. It's the opposite to the 3rd house. So it's a meeting of minds again, but on a much higher consciousness level. So it's a meeting of consciousness, if you like. It's a meeting of consciousness expanding. So the two people feel that they can expand their consciousness by coming together. So something about the relationship and the union enables these people to really share so much in terms of, you know, metaphysical subjects, spiritual subjects, religion, astrology, you know, all those are expanding components of life that expand one's consciousness. The couple feel very connected through these experiences and subjects and through this sharing. And that's wonderful, but in terms of a intimate, sensual, sexual relationship, that element is either absent or not very important for this couple, so that their primary focus is all the esoteric elements of life from that mind consciousness level, right brain, third eye, expansion, transcendence, and so forth. Okay, the 10th house is a great house actually for a couple, for the composite sun to be in. It actually indicates that this is a very important relationship, a very important union, where the two people could potentially really, the relationship serves as a pathway to their calling and to their purpose and meaning and life direction. So something about the two people coming together develops that purpose for each of them, but together as a unit. And it's also it could be a very important relationship from a social public level. So as I mentioned in my previous video, the couple could be doing really important things on that social public level, where they're working together or helping communities or doing things on a external social level that is very influential. But if they were to do it individually, it wouldn't really map out that way for them. So it is their union, the fact that they are together, and this relationship that enables this life path and higher calling to come to fruition. Okay, so it's a really strong house, really great house actually. 11th house, again, that's a really awesome house for the composite sun. Luckily we have quite a few houses where the composite sun does really well. Otherwise, gee, I tell you what, there'd be many more unhappy people in the world. Okay, so 11th house is really great for the composite sun to be in the 11th house. Is great for any kind of relationship because it's a house of friends, essentially. It's the Aquarian house. So one of the reasons that a composite sun does really well in the 11th house is because I think it's fair to say that a healthy, long-lasting relationship, in terms of a love, intimate relationship, requires a fundamental friendship to be present. You know, that's a primary foundation in a long-lasting, healthy relationship. If you're not friends with your partner, I think that's a barrier, that's a problem. So this is why the 11th house is really great for a composite sun to be in. It just means that the couple are really great friends as well as lovers, and sharing their life on multiple levels. It also means that they'll have a lot of friends that they connect with, and they share their lives with all their different friendships, and that's a really important component to the purpose of the relationship. It's sharing their relationship with all their different groups of friends they have, and also connecting to different groups, and you know, doing group stuff together and sharing that part of life together is really important. And it's easy, it's really lovely. The other thing that's really important about the 11th house is that because the 11th house is our hopes and our dreams and our wishes. It's a beautiful house, the 11th house. So this means that with the composite sun there, this couple fundamentally share their hopes and dreams and wishes together, and they're able to achieve those together as a unit. So there's a lot of power in a relationship that would be absent in an individual life. Okay, 12th house. 12th house, not a good house for a composite sun. probably for many relationships actually. Well, it's, as much as it is the house of oneness, it is also the house of no boundaries. So there's a lot of confusion when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody and your composite sun is in the 12th house. It's a sense of you have no idea why you're in this relationship, and you have no idea what this relationship is about. It doesn't have a clear purpose. It's a very confusing relationship. So that alone can create a lot of problems, right? Because if you don't know why you're in a relationship and you don't have a clear sense of where it's going or what the purpose of being with this person is, well, I don't see how that's going to make one feel, you know, grounded, connected, centered, clear about their relationship. And it's also very difficult from the point of view of if there's dishonesty that takes place. The 12th house is the house of undoing, right? Self-undoing. So when we function in a dishonest way through the 12th house, we come undone very quickly. So it's dishonesty and selfishness cannot work in the 12th house, okay? It's the house of transcendence and spiritual things and our spiritual life and our spiritual union with the divine. And admittedly, you know, when two people come together, they both have two egos. So, you know, the ego function really struggles in the 12th house. It's not an ego house. It's the death of the ego, okay? So, yeah, 12th house sun, very confusing placement for the sun, and just an essential confusion about the meaning and purpose of this relationship, why you're even in it. So, yeah, not a good place. So have a look at, you know, if you're in a relationship at the moment, do a composite chart for your relationship. Have a look at where the sun is. Have a look at where the moon is. I'll do some more videos on further elements of delineating a composite chart. So perhaps next video I'll talk about the moon and some other things as well. So I think I can wrap it up there, and you know, this video is a bit shorter than the rest of them, which I'm, you know, kind of pleased about. It's almost 30 minutes, so that's pretty good. Okay, so having said all of that, this is the book that I recommend for you, Planets in Composite by Rob Hand. This book was written in 1975. It was a very long time ago, but it is definitely one of the best books on the market. Rob Hand is a renowned astrologer, been around forever. I met him personally when he came out to Australia quite a few years ago. I went and did some of his workshops, and very interesting man, very lovely man, and just brilliant mind, brilliant astrologer. So I've got pretty much all his books. I got all his books many, many years ago when I first started astrology, and I've worked with a lot of his material. But this is a great book to help you understand a composite chart in terms of every single planet in every single location and so forth, okay? There are many other things to consider in a composite chart as well that maybe Rob Hand doesn't touch on, okay? He works with his own model and so forth, and you know, it depends. I guess that let me be very clear. This is what I'm saying. Rob Hand doesn't seem to work well in this older material, at least. I haven't viewed any of his new books. Not even sure if he has new books. I think he has one that may have come out recently, which I haven't viewed. But in terms of his older material, Rob Hand doesn't really take the approach of past life aspects into a birth chart. And I do very much. I've always worked with the premise that we have reincarnated, and we will, when we leave this body, reincarnate again. So when I look at a birth chart, I'm always looking at it from that window in terms of the South Node and Pluto. Okay, so yeah, I think I'll leave it there for today, and I hope, you know, this brief introduction to the composite sun through the houses is useful for you. Hopefully it sheds some light to things that maybe you didn't know, and stay tuned for my next video, which I'll continue on relationship astrology, because there's so many levels and layers and so much more to talk about. But yeah, as always, feel free to comment or ask any questions, and thank you so much for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It supports me, it helps me, as I'm trying to be totally independent and self-employed with my passion, which is the love of astrology and sharing it and so forth. And of course, if you're interested in having a reading, please contact me. I love doing readings, and it takes a bit of time to prepare and you know, book it in with you, etc., etc. Okay, let's just keep all that in mind. And I think the moon's still in Aquarius. Let me just check. I seem to, sorry, yes it is. I seem to really delve into astrology quite a lot when the moon cycles through Aquarius. Some other signs as well, but mainly I've noticed Aquarius moon. Perhaps it's because I've got moon in Aquarius, Aquarius ascendant, and I've got Uranus trine my ascendant and trine my moon. So I'm quite Uranian Aquarian, I guess you could say, in a way. Okay, anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks. Bye.